Massachusetts Congressman and Democratic presidential candidate Seth Moulton is in New Hampshire today, but he was in Iowa over the weekend.
To win this election, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be as easy to beat Donald Trump as some Democrats like to think. To do so, we need to bring together a remarkably diverse coalition. A coalition that includes everybody in the Democratic Party. And we got to get everybody to turn out. We can't leave anybody out. But also includes independent voters. Some Obama, Trump voters, I'm sure there are some of you here today, and even some disaffected Republicans. I know I can build a coalition like that because I've done so before in some of the most difficult circumstances on earth. That was my job in Iraq, and I've seen other Americans do it too. I know what it takes.
Hunter Walker is back with us. He's White House correspondent for Yahoo News. All right, so Hunter, it is unlikely that Congressman Moulton will make the next debate stage in September. You report he's still not giving up his bid. So what could be his goal?
Yeah, I mean, it's important for people to understand. We talk about the top-tier candidates and then the folks on the bubble with that. I mean, Congressman Moulton didn't even make the last two debates, and it's only getting tougher from here. The requirements are only getting harder. So, you know, he's not even registering in the polls. But I did recently sit down with him, and I got a sense of what is animating his bid. And I think, you know, he feels that he has something he's bringing to the conversation, both in what we just heard before, where he thinks that he is uniquely positioned to potentially, you know, build the coalition electorally that Democrats need to win. But also, this is a guy who, you know, did serve in the Marines. He served in Iraq. He has brought veterans issues to the fore in his campaign. And I think he is genuinely frustrated with the lack of a conversation that we're having around, you know, national security and foreign policy. And he has, you know, a robust platform on those fronts, and it's something that, frankly, we barely saw come up in the debates. There was discussion of Afghanistan, but both Iraq and Syria were almost not mentioned at all.
So what is he proposing? What are some of the policies that he is looking at on this topic of national security?
Yeah, broadly, the Moulton doctrine, if you will, seems to be a mixture of increased diplomacy and forced drawdowns. I mean, I went through a lightning round with him and, you know, talked about all these areas where we do have troops at war, you know, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, and that, you know, broadly describes his, you know, solutions for those areas. But also, I think he wants to broaden the national security conversation. He sees Russia and China, the threats from those nations, as something that we should be including in this mix. And also, we talked about Africa, where the U.S. has, you know, extended military operations, and he believes that we need to have a debate in Congress. We can't just be, you know, going to war in Africa and including it under the old War on Terror authorization.
Well, we saw former Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper drop out of the race last week. Is that putting much pressure on Congressman Moulton?
I think, you know, Hickenlooper's decision and also, you know, this coming third debate round that's going to have the tougher requirements is putting pressure on everybody. And, you know, sources close to Moulton were already admitting to me that, you know, as much as they'd like to see him win, they're, you know, seeing this as potentially a chance for him to get some other positions, including, you know, in the cabinet. They see him as a quote-unquote natural for Secretary of Defense or Veterans Affairs, given his experience and the platform he's put forward on these issues. Also, you know, they are talking about him as potentially a good VP pick. Just that his relative youth, he's only 40 years old, and his military experience could make him an appealing choice for someone. We'll see what happens with that, given how little support he's shown in the polls.
All right, but we will stay tuned on that front. Hunter Walker. Hunter, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.